Hey, everybody, welcome back to STRnomics. I'm Bill Faith, joined by my good friend Kenny Bedwell from STR Insights. How are you today, Kenny?
Doing pretty good, Bill. It's Monday morning, so I'm feeling chipper.
It's Thursday, actually. Remember, this is released on Thursday.
Oh yeah, you're right. It is Thursday. We're recording it on a Monday though. Hey, you know what? What's
Shh.
really
You're
funny?
not supposed to tell people that.
Yeah, there we go. We're recording it live. Everyone's live. The party is going in the background. We are live in New York City. The ball is about to drop.
I
That's
can
how,
actually hear the music thumping next door. My wife's on the Peloton right now, so
yeah,
it's kind of
there
it's
you
kind of
go.
funny.
Um,
It is Monday. We literally just got done with boot camp. You were my special surprise guest. And did a phenomenal job of training based on a new venture that you and I have put together that we kind of touched on in last week's episode. And this is not going to be a sales pitch for VA STRs or STRVAs.com. You can go there on your own, STRVAs.com. Well, we might have to make that the sponsor moving forward, Kenny. But um, I think it's really important. I want to follow up on what you taught last week because the title of this is your time valuation, right? A lot of us just think in terms of financials and how much money can we make in our job or in our business venture or whatever. But a lot of people don't take a step back and think about why the fuck they started a business. And really, for most of us, I'm not saying for everybody, but for most people, it's to be able to spend more time with your family, have more freedom. It's like time value freedom, right? And I know you're in the mix of a startup or two. I've lived my entire life this way. And I just believe that a lot of people that are diving into short term rentals and specifically what's coming over the next 90 days to 6 months. I sent out an email probably 2 weeks ago about you need to be prepared for what's going to be arguably the slowest fall and winter season since pre 2019. And a lot of people have only been in this since 2020, 2021, 2022. So I don't think they understand the time and effort that people like you and I that have been in this business since pre COVID that goes into filling your calendars. It goes into sustaining your pricing integrity and not just setting and forgetting pricing, setting and forgetting your listings on Airbnb and Verbo. And this is kind of sparked. You and I both saw the same post over the weekend about somebody asking in my Build Short Term Rental Wealth group about like, well, hey, when do you guys start preparing for fall? And I'm like, dude, I started this 2 months ago,
right.
right? So let's talk about that time valuation. And I just want you to take a couple of minutes and share what you taught this weekend in regards to VAs because you have like, is it 16, 17 VAs right now?
Yeah.
Probably more than that.
I got VAs managing VAs. I
Right.
got
So, I
VAs
mean,
on
last time,
VAs.
I mean, you and I actually, we talked about this when we recorded the last episode, and it's been a couple of weeks, and I think you had 16 or 17 at that time, but I know you've been ramping up and we've been training for STR VAs. So let's just say it's 20 plus. How does that save you time? And how do you manage that many VAs and what's the purpose of it?
Yeah. So what I talked about and what I've found in my experience is that if you can replace there, I guess to summarize a little better, like we every single day we have very repetitive tasks that we do in our businesses, like or we should be doing, I should say. Sometimes we don't do some of the repetitive tasks that we should be doing, like say running a profit and loss statement once a month. I can't tell you how many people don't do that, and that's something they should be doing, and that would be something that's a repetitive task. It's the same process every single month at either the first or the end of the month. You run to see what you made and what you lost. So that's one thing that we can replace. The pricing once a week, the marketing, all these other little pieces that we know we can do. We know for our market, we know for our property that we do, and a lot of times we do it ourselves. Those are the processes or the tasks that can be replaced by VAs. So number one, we have to recognize that. We have to recognize that we're doing some sort of task over and over and over and over, and be able to document that into words, what it is and how we're going to be able to teach someone else how to do it. essentially an SOP, right?
That
So
that that thing that you just talked about, Kenny, before you dive into the SOP, that awareness is like it's almost like an alcoholic finally admitting that they have a problem, right?
yes,
Seriously. I mean, a lot of people, oh, well, they don't have the awareness to understand what they're missing or what they're doing in those repetitive tasks, right? So if you're updating your title, every other day or every 3 days and you have to go in and copy and paste or go to Chat GPT and think about a new title. It's that basic stuff that any VA that has been trained can execute that for you, right? Just at the very remedial level, that's not worth Kenny's time. That's not worth my time. And it's not worth your time either.
yeah, and I mean, I talked about this in at the boot camp, but also like it's not even we're talking about VAs here, but people this is in terms of like any employee. As you grow a business, you are hiring employees to take care of tasks that you either aren't very good at, so like programming, if that's ever something that you have to deal with, like building a website or all these other things, marketing, I don't know, like financials, all these different things. But in the short-term rental space, we can leverage VAs very easily. There's VAs who can help us in these things. There aren't, we don't need someone who's an expert coder to help develop a software to help us get bookings or anything like that. So we can rely on VAs, but the principles we're talking about for any business apply for hiring employees. And so the process is like, if you're like, I don't really care about using a VA, it like, that doesn't matter. It's not about that. It's about hiring people to help build your business so you can have time to do whatever you want, because you're going to need more time coming in the fall. You're going to need more time to strategize, be a CEO. That was a big thing I really wanted to emphasize at boot camp, is like how to become a CEO of the business, not the CFO, the COO, the CEO, like all the different hats, like how to pass some of those hats out so you can focus on being the CEO of your business to actually grow it. Because that's the role of the CEO, is to grow the business, long-term vision, and do that. And you're going to have to do that when times get tough. You're going to have to strategize and do these things. And that will require, hence the time, or the title up at the top, more time. And we have to allow people who are specialized in what they do, who are experts in their skills, to come in and assist us so that we can focus
Say that
on
one more time.
We have to allow people who are specialized in what they do to come in and assist us so we can spend more time growing the company.
So let's talk about that for a second, because there's two things I want to unpack that you just said. Number one is really that awareness to identify those repetitive or mundane tasks that, and I don't want to say that are beneath us, because we all do that dirty work, but that will create more time, that you can create a simple SOP, you can train somebody, and then you just manage them, like you said, becoming the CEO. There's another thing, you and I have discussed this term before. It's not my term, but it's also the flip side of that is identify what your genius zone is, right? So what are you really fucking good at? So if you don't know how to run Facebook ads, as an example, I honestly would not take the time to learn. And I'm going to use a different analogy, coding. You said coding or programming. I've been in the digital space since 2003. I've built over 1,500 websites, but I've never done it. I don't know how to build a website. I've never written one line of HTML, but I've hired people and trained them and given the path of what I want done for the finished product and how I want it done. Right. So those are the things that Kenny's talking about. And you really need to identify those two. They're opposite ends of the spectrum, right? Your genius zone. For me, I'm not using a VA for marketing because I'm way better at marketing. That is my genius zone, marketing and sales. You know what I hate doing, Kenny? And I hate doing my own profit and loss. And you know this from being in my mastermind. It's required. You have to do it. I don't even know if you ever did one before you joined the mastermind. Most people haven't. And it's required by the 5th of every single month. But I know, even though I need that done, I need that information as a CEO, I'm not going to get it done. So it used to be my wife did all of them. As we scaled, she's like, I can't handle all of this. Now we have multiple VAs that handle it. And one of the key things for Kenny and what he taught, and if you don't want to do this, Kenny and I can do it for you, just FYI. But how you recruit, hire, compensate, manage, create SOPs, train, and incentivize, right? Those are all the keys, just like with any type of employee. But I think it all starts, and I think the hardest part, Kenny, at least for me and what I see with other people that I coach, is the mundane tasks or remedial or your genius zone. Figure those two things out before you get started. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, 1,000%. So I absolutely
So,
agree with
as an owner or a host, not STR Insights, not any of the other stuff, what are some of the tasks that you have your VAs do for you to save time?
So I have my VAs, sorry, for the STR side.
Just for your co-hosting and ownership of your
All
properties,
right,
yes.
all right. Yeah. It's like, all right, let me get in that phase of mind. So number one, I have a pricing VA. So my pricing VA goes in and he's going to look at my competitors. So one of the biggest things that I found, and I go after VAs who have experience, either they've worked for other hosts for years, or like property management companies, or have worked for Airbnb, because they can help me in different aspects with that. So I've got guys who are very skilled, but I come in and I teach them, and everything I teach them with my pricing strategies, they might have known, but like there's a little bit of like, they're like, oh, that's a unique way of doing it. I didn't know you could do it this way. But what I've done is I've figured out my pricing strategy first, nailed that down, and then taught that to a VA in very simple terms. And so it's very like clockwork. So number one is pricing strategy management, or pricing management, or whatever you
And
want to
does
call it.
that VA like do your social media and communicate with guests?
Heck no. No. A lot of times the pricing VA, they have like a thick accent, like there's a little, I wouldn't say they definitely understand what I'm saying, because they have to be able to watch a video and be able to, go from there. But I don't require them to. They don't have to work during EST hours unless I need to meet with them. Like there's all these little things that I've kind of positioned this job to say, look, I'm looking for somebody with this specific set of skills who's good with, the numbers and the pricing and has experience there. I don't care if you don't like messaging guests, you know nothing about social media. That's irrelevant. I only want you to focus on pricing. That's your job day and night. And that's all they focus on is my pricing.
So do you have a VA that communicates with guests?
No, I don't do that anymore. No, but I do, I guess, like to back up here a little bit. I do have somebody for who's practiced and worked with me on that. But for my personal portfolio, because I only am managing like a few properties at this point, I don't use a VA. I just use the technology. But I do have VAs who have experience messaging guests and go through that whole process. So no, personally, but for other people or other properties, yes, I do have people.
And the point of me asking that is a lot of people think that they can have one VA to do everything, to literally implement their pricing strategy, do
Right.
their research, do their bookkeeping on the back end, create content, manage social media, communicate with guests. And it doesn't fucking work ever, ever. Whether
Yeah.
you try to do that on your own or you pay somebody that allegedly has trained them in all those skills, VAs do not have all of those skills. And that's the thing that's fundamentally different, Kenny, that you're talking about, is you need to hire based on that singular skill.
Well,
I went down that path and made all those mistakes when I first started, right? I wanted somebody that could do, I was looking for a marketing VA, create content, edit videos, do search engine optimization,
yeah,
and
it's tough.
email marketing. It didn't work because I wanted to hire a Chris that works for me. And it just, you can't, I mean, you can't do that for $4 to $7 an hour.
Right. Yeah, it's very true. Even if you found someone, it's probably a team or a company, that has different people that have basically, you're hiring a middleman, because the best people are going to be very skilled in one thing. I almost think of it like your skill level, like rankings in a video game, or, I don't know, like something else where it's like your levels. Like it's never going to be even across the board. It's never going to be 99.
Like tennis,
Or
tennis has
8
different
plus.
levels, right? That you
Yeah,
compete at, I think.
right.
I
And
don't play
so it's
tennis.
just it's understanding that, but like, for example, my marketing VAs who do like create social media content for me, like the images and put the hashtags and stuff with it. They don't have a lick of clue about pricing, you know, and I could try to teach them, but that's just not their thing. And you know, it's like, look, you know, like just manage social media, optimize that, do that to your best ability, do a training on that, like have them focus the majority of their time and effort and energy on that skill, and they'll get even better at it. And that's really what you want, is the best, not okay. You want the best doing those things for you.
So, I mean, and I think that's the primary reason of this podcast and saving time is you can create scale through VAs. You can hire people that have that is their genius zone when it's not your genius zone. You know, if you hire somebody that is a graphic designer or a video editor and you want to do reels on Instagram or have posts for your property and you can't do that, I mean, I use Canva like every single day, but if I need something done really, really well, I'm going to Chris. If I'm just going to drop it in an email, that's one thing. But if I need something that looks sexy or pretty to go in my Instagram, I got to have Chris or my one of my VAs do that. I don't have that skill, that eye to be able to do it. So that's where I think really identifying and having that awareness of what you're good at and not so good at compared to what's going to drive results. That's a big thing that a lot of people don't get from a marketing perspective, but it's same with bookkeeping, P&Ls, communication, all that type of stuff. With that being said, there's a fundamental reason, Kenny, and you're the one that really hammered this home for me, is the backbone of, STR VAs, and that you're hiring a skill. You're not hiring a person, the all-in-one to try to do everything. You're coming in at a fraction of the cost of hiring one of those big all-in-one VAs to really get that skill. And
Right.
I think one of the biggest skills that the two, and you've talked a lot about pricing strategy. I think that's one that people are missing, because I think there's people that we will have trained that are going to be well, I shouldn't say I think, we know they're going to be way better at pricing strategy than, your average host. But the other one's research. I think that's one thing that the average host, I shouldn't say the average host, the good host, good, better, best, the good to better, don't spend enough time researching. And it's interesting. Probably in the last 6 weeks while I've been on vacation, I've spent more time researching probably in that 6-week period than I had to in all of the second half of 2020 and 2021. And if you're not going to invest the time to research on your own, then you should create some KPIs that you need help with, and then have a VA do it for $300 or $400 a month. Because if you don't have that information, you're not going to be able to make educated decisions.
Yeah. And when you say research, like what kind of research are you doing?
I'm
Competitive
talking like,
research, like
what's that?
Competitive purchasing, like what?
Really all competitive research that ties into what I'm going to do from a marketing and a pricing strategy standpoint. So I handle all my own stuff, as I think and most people know. I don't have a VA do anything inside of my listings, but I do have somebody that does research. And that is really important for me. And then I do have somebody that does back office from a P&L standpoint. And it's not a lot of, no, I don't give them direct access to my bank accounts. No, I don't give them direct access to QuickBooks. There's ways that you can set this up to protect yourself from that stuff. But research, a lot of enemy method, a lot of pricing information. I'm doing a lot more manually today on my pricing strategies than I ever have. And that means I need information on a weekly basis to be able to make updates, if that makes sense. Just setting and forgetting Wheelhouse, Price Labs, Beyond, even if you have everything set up correctly for far out bookings, last minute bookings at 20 days, 10 days, 5 days, whatever that is, there's a pricing element that has to be kept into place. And I just don't trust something like IntelliHost or even any of the Price Labs or Beyond or Wheelhouse to automate that for me,
to catch it.
So that's a huge deal. That's the majority. When I'm looking in buying mode, and I was getting down to the nitty gritty of a 1031, and I found someplace, thank God. But now part of it is it's so challenging right now. I have not secured financing for that condo in Montana, and it has nothing to do with my financials at all. Believe me, I'm strong, really strong. It has everything to do with it being a condo and a brand new HOA. So I've literally had my VA start searching for options, and I'm communicating with 3 bankers I've had no relationship with previously that potentially can still underwrite that. Or I'm going to have to do like my 1031 and a cash deal and then try to refi out of it, which I don't want to have to do. So there's a lot of different research, that can be done. And then I've had a VA for 5 years on the marketing side. Not I use him a little bit for my portfolio, but not much. And it's interesting. He started out as that individual VA, and we hired him full time. And what you got to understand, if you hire your own VA, they're typically not going to be dedicated to you, even though you're paying for 20, 40 hours a week. They're doing that for other people too. He's built his entire agency business in the last 2.5 years since I started doing this 3 years ago, doing all real estate stuff. Just taking everything he's learned from working with us. And now he has like, I think 22 VAs that work under him in his agency. And at first I was kind of pissed about it, but now it's like I'm friends with him on Facebook. I see what he does with his family. It's created a whole opportunity for him. But the point is you brought up that if you have one person that says they're doing everything, it's probably an agency and there's multiple people involved behind it.
Yeah, that I run into that all the time. They're like, oh yeah, I can do X, Y. Like, so the social media, when I was first looking for a social media content manager, it was a VA, and then she has like a whole team. And so when I got on the call with her, she had like 5 people on. I was like, who are all these people? And she's like, oh, this person's going to manage your video editing. This person's going to do like your, the actual posts, and this person's going to do all these different things. And it's like, holy cow. But at the end of the day, I mean, if I'm comfortable with what they do and the work they do, yeah, by all means, let's do it, and the price and all that. But I guess to kind of bring it back though, I want our listeners to know that, you need to be doing something. You don't need to go, if you don't want to, you don't need to go hire a VA. You can obviously like do this stuff yourself. But remember, we're trying to eliminate some of that time we're spending on our rentals. And I guarantee if you're like, well, I don't need a VA, I can do it all myself, you're probably not doing something that you should be doing that we talked about, So I mean,
I think that's the bigger point, Kenny, is people think they're going to do it, but they're not auditing themselves, and they don't create a schedule for themselves,
correct,
like you can with a VA. So then it just keeps getting pushed to the back burner. Oh, you know what? Soccer's more important. I've got I work 9 to 5. I'll do it tonight. And then, the new episode of Friends comes out, or dinner or whatever, as opposed to spending a few $100 to have somebody do whatever that stuff is that you keep kicking that can down the road so you can't implement it. And the purpose of the timing of this is that you have to start doing that stuff now. You should have already been preparing for fall and, for winter, for the compression events that happen, updating your photos, rearranging your photos, especially if you're in a transitional, market like Kenny, in Buffalo as an example, or in, New York, Watkins Glen. You've got to transition from summer to fall foliage photos to winter copy, all these things. And you got to stay ahead of the trend on the booking side of that. The other thing that I think is really important, Kenny, is people you don't hear this enough. You and I talk about it. The members of the super team talk about it. You and I have talked about it in previous podcasts, but it's a term and a metric that we don't see in social media ever. And it's booking lead time. Right. And I think a lot of people are going to be freaking out too soon this fall and winter when their booking lead time shrinks even more than it has been during summertime. Right. And if you have a VA that's doing research and looking at booking lead times, hopefully that will mediate some of your anxiety and allow you to not negatively impact your pricing strategy. Because I think that's something as we go into the fall that is going to be super important for people to pay attention to, but most are not going to have the time or the resources to track that.
My whole, I guess, like kind of spiel here for this episode is you need to act now. You need to be acting today. I see too many hosts, we're into August, and this time of August, I guess like beginning half is still rock and rolling, and everybody's feeling really good. We've come off the summer high, the peak season high, especially beach markets. Oh, wow, I just made a ton of money. Life is going well. Let's go ahead and buy that boat or whatever else. We're not kind of thinking about the future. And it's already a little bit late, to be frank, but you still got a little bit of time to take some action to prepare for the future. And it doesn't necessarily mean doom and gloom. It just means prepare for the down season every single year. Even in 2021, 2022, people were not mentally prepared for a slight, like seasonality. We just get so used to what's going on in the summertime and how great things are with the money flowing in that we're not used to that. And that's where, Bill, you said this and it makes perfect sense. You make your money, you maximize your returns in the shoulder or off season, not in the peak season. And that's so true.
Anybody can make money during the summer.
What's that?
Anybody can make money during the summer.
Exactly.
Yeah. If you got a ski in, ski out property, you can make money in, from Christmas through March. It's easy.
Well, and another thing too is like when you went and said, I think my property is going to make X, and then you bought that property thinking it's going to make X, that the difference between like the average and and you said, no, this property is better than the average. That difference is what you make in the shoulder season, the off season, not what you do in the peak season, because the average is making money in the peak season.
I'll just give you an example, and you may or may not know this, but I've been in Gulf Shores, Alabama since 2015. So that is 8 seasons now. We're coming to an end, right? School starts for us. I don't know about you up there in New York, but our school starts on Friday. So this is our last week of people on vacation. January and February, about 70 to 75%. I don't know the exact number. Traditionally, pre-COVID, 70 to 75% of bookings are longer term snowbirds, that come down in January and February in that market. I have never once taken a snowbird, ever, because they're not profitable enough. They block out your calendar, all this stuff that's negative, at least for me as somebody that's trying to maximize profit. But I've started trying to fill those dates typically in September and October through marketing, through email, through all these different types of things of marketing, as opposed to just waiting and then I have to rely on snowbirds. So if I can get a snowbird at a 4-bedroom, 3-bath in Fort Morgan, Alabama, which they're typically not going to pay more than, $3,500 to $4,500 a month that time of year. Okay, what do my weekend pricing need to be on 2-night minimums? Can I still get $800 a night, $1,000 a night just for those 2 nights? Then I can price strategize, Sunday through Thursday at $300 a night, $299 a night. And then if I can fill those at 20%, see, these are the things that people don't understand. If I wait till December, I'm screwed. So that's stuff that I'm working on now for the 9 beach properties I've got down in Gulf Shores and Fort Morgan, Alabama. Those components will deploy most likely in mid to late September for January and February bookings.
I like it.
Done. I can't drop my mic.
You can't drop your mic.
Yeah. So that's the reason, if you can't prioritize that stuff to get prepared this far in advance, you need a VA. You need somebody to help you, right? And it's going to, I believe this summer even, Kenny, because I had to take a couple of properties that were not super properties that I co-host and turn them into, and even one that I own, into a 3-2-1 property. So I had to work to get those things booked, right? My summer ended up being great. It ended up doing better than I thought it was going to do. There's no question. I think my overall summer was down like 3.5% to 5%, depending on what happens this week, versus last year, which I'm perfectly cool with. But one of the things is the time that I had to put into it. It was 3 to 4 times more effort. It was actually probably closer to 10 times more, because I didn't have to do a thing, the last couple of years like most people. Well, just understand, folks, that if you want to be profitable, if you want to hit those goals, that time valuation is probably going to have to increase 3 to 5 times this fall and winter compared to last year or the year before. So set your goals accordingly, figure out what your genius zone is, and then figure out what those remedial redundant tasks are that you can offload, and then head over to strvas.com and see if something's a fit for you.
Love it. That's
Cool.
it.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of STRonomics. We'll see you guys next week. Happy hosting, everybody.